Dr. Van, I have personally never traveled abroad. I heard you went to China over the summer last year. Did you make any friends there?
Yeah, I still text them over WeChat and WhatsApp. I actually just texted my one friend from South Africa, and he'll be joining us today.
Wait, are you talking about Nathan? The Nathan, who's a youth ambassador, youth empowerment activist, who's currently getting his master's in politics international relations at the University of Johannesburg, and who researches youth activism, identity politics, and Pan-Africanism? That Nathan?
Yes, Nathan Swartz. He's got a pretty impressive resume, and I don't think there's anyone more fitting to moderate our student panel today. Nathan, are you there? How are things in Johannesburg?
Well, just thank you very much for this awesome and amazing opportunity. I'm greeting you from sunny, well, not necessarily sunny, a cold evening in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I just wanted to say Sambonani, Dumelang, Goeienaand, and greetings from Johannesburg, South Africa. I am beyond grateful for this amazing experience to just share in my personal exchange experience, as well as just engage on youth activism and global citizenship. Even though we might not be physically with one another, the power of global citizenship is a movement that no virus or circumstance can stop. And I would say that my exchange experience has definitely showed me and taught me how to look at the world from outside of my country. I come from a community where both my parents are unemployed and disabled. Likewise, my community faces challenges like youth unemployment, gangsterism, substance abuse. And I believe that when I went on exchange to the US back in 2013, 2014, the biggest thing that I learned was that even though the world is filled with all of these various problems, we are able to effectively contribute to it by being active citizens. And you know, it's definitely an interesting time in history to be alive. Even though much of humanity is locked away, war and conflict still continues. Poverty and hunger still ravages many nations. Gaps of inequality across spectrums of race, gender, and class still exist. And our dearest Earth continues to grapple with this harsh negative influences that we as human beings have on our planet. And ultimately, we became the society that has lost touch with our real humanity. But it's not all gloom and doom just yet. And I believe that one group has stood up, and this is the youth. And the youth has definitely risen to the plate to take the future in the hands of themselves. Often it is said that we as youth, we tend to say that youth are the future, but we find a lot of adults and a lot of society still suppressing youth and youth opinion. And I'm so grateful for this particular platform, because this is a platform where we can effectively contribute and engage and bring forward the youth voice. Many people have silenced the youth's voice for the benefits of themselves to continue to destroy our society through things like corruption, bigotry, and toxic leadership. But youth activism has become a force like no other. If we look at leaders such as Malala and Greta Thunberg, are just two examples of leaders who actually show the power of youth, who have a collective vision to change their circumstance. In my country, South Africa, and in Africa, we have this philosophy that we're often taught and we encouraged to live by. It's called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu simply means that I am who I am because of who we are. And essentially that stands for the fact that your existence, your actions, and the consequences of your actions are not solely independent to you, but you are ultimately connected or part of this interconnected purpose and system that affects everyone. And I cannot see a better example of this quality than in the power of global citizenship and the potential that intercultural learning can serve our humanity in this present moment and beyond. We can definitely change the world, maybe not in one instance, but one person at a time. And I just want to once again thank HISD for this opportunity. And I hope that through this particular discussion that the audience will also get involved and the various stakeholders might also gain an interesting insight on what global citizenship is through the stories and experiences of this amazing group of young leaders on our student panel today. With that said, at this moment in time, I actually just want to give the opportunity to the panelists to just introduce themselves. Can we start? We'll start with Vincent.
Hi, my name is Vincent. I'm a senior at Bel Air High School. I'm representing EF Tours today. I've been on 2 trips with them. The first was called Grecian Odyssey. I went to Greece for a week. The second one was called Venice, the Alps, and Paris, where I went to Italy, Switzerland, and France for a week. And I can also touch on my experience with CIE as an exchange student in Spain for a month. And my favorite meal from my trips would have to be for my first trip, the Greek dish of pasticcio, which is similar to lasagna.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds really tasty, Vincent. Who do we have next on?
Hi, my name is Faith. I'm a junior and currently a rising senior in Energy Institute High School. I'll be representing AFS, and I've traveled with AFS for about 3 weeks in a program to Ghana. And I would say my favorite dish would be jollof rice and definitely the chocolate there as well.
Ooh, chocolate in Ghana. What are some of like the good flavors of chocolate in Ghana?
So there were like normal flavors like dark chocolate, but there was also like coffee, ginger, lemon, orange. It was really crazy. It was really nice.
Ooh, that sounds absolutely divine. Who do we have next on?
Hi, my name is Mia Garcia. I am a junior at the Houston Academy for International Studies. I went to the Puranik 10-day program in Impact India, which was in Pune, India. I would have to say my favorite dish there has to be chapati, which is similar to tortillas.
Oh, cool. Mia, are those pictures behind you from your experience?
Actually, yes, they are.
They are so cool. So cool. Who do we have next on?
Hi, my name is Ethan Warren. I'm currently a sophomore at Carnegie Vanguard High School, and I am representing Amigos de las Américas. Last summer, I went to Azuero, Panama for 6 weeks, and I would have to say that my favorite meal there was probably the lentils, fish, and rice.
Let's kick this off with a simple question, and I'll have this question also thrown at the audience as well. Be sure to just comment in the chat. What does it mean to be a global citizen to you? Does anyone like to start? What does it mean to be a global citizen to you? You can give me a one line or a word.
I think that being a global citizen means to be culturally aware of your global surroundings.
Cool. So that sense of just being aware of where you come from, aware from the environment that you grew up in, and just simply awareness in that regard. Do you have anyone else that would like to also add onto that in terms of what does it mean to be a global citizen?
So going off of what you said of being aware, I would say that being a global citizen means like willing to try new things and willing to learn, as well as having a respect of their culture and a knowledge of their culture as well.
So you'd say that being a global citizen, it's like taking risks and being a risk taker?
Yes, just willing to try new things and go outside your comfort zone.
I firmly believe that. I can remember that to be a global citizen or just to grow as a person, you often need to get out of your comfort zone, because that's essentially where you find growth, is in a space where you totally don't know what's going on. And that's exactly how culture shock also works in that regard. Let's go to Mia and Vincent.
I would also like to add that I think someone who's a global citizen really is aware of different cultures and how their actions affect people around the world.
That sense of that and that actually touches upon the Ubuntu concept that I spoke about, that you are part of this interconnectedness system that you are essentially playing a role in. So as a global citizen, you're not solely independent, but you are fundamentally a part of a bigger purpose. Mia, what about you? What do you think it means to be a global citizen?
For me, I would have to say being a global citizen means to keep an open mind, honestly. Whenever you're traveling or even like just doing things within your own community, really keeping an open mind and again, stepping out of your comfort zone and doing things that you wouldn't normally do, and just really embracing your surroundings and the people who are around you as well.
And I'm sure that sense of when you embrace yourself with your surroundings and coming out of your comfort zone, I'm sure that there's a lot of challenges that one might face on exchange. Let me turn to Ethan. Ethan, what would you say are some of like the biggest challenges that you faced while on exchange, and how did you perhaps overcome those challenges?
So one of the biggest challenges I faced in Panama, which I'm sure everyone faced this problem as well, the language barrier. So how I overcame this was I continuously talked to my family, and I realized that they knew that my Spanish was not as good as theirs, obviously, because they're native speakers. But yeah, I just continuously talked to them, and I just got over the fear of speaking in Spanish.
Oh, cool. So that sense of actually like engaging one-on-one with someone that speaks a different language somewhat helped you in that way. Was speaking to the local culture also, did it help you? Did you learn any slang?
I did learn some slang. However, I just, when you're not using it, it just kind of fades away from memory.
It just
But
goes.
yes, I did learn
It just
slang.
goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Has anyone else experienced that sense of language barriers as being one of the challenges while on exchange?
So the language barrier was never too big of an issue for me due to the fact that in Ghana, one of the main languages was English. So it was a lot easier for me to be integrated into the culture and be able to speak to multiple people and things. However, there was something that was a little bit difficult, which was probably getting used to not using our left hand. Because in Ghana, it's seen as sort of disrespectful to use your left hand to eat or to do anything with that. They call it the toilet hand, using your left hand. So that was pretty hard to get used to.
That sounds very interesting, and I think I need to be very careful when I go to Ghana because I'm naturally left-handed. So I'm gonna be like, either I have to just figure out the way to use my right hand or just be conscious of that. Thanks for sharing that, so that I know if I ever go to Ghana, I'll definitely take that into mind. What about the sense of you obviously while you go on exchange, you have experienced this amazing thing and this amazing experience, and I'm sure there are a few things that you might have wished you knew before you went on exchange. And I think let me throw this one out to Vincent. Vincent, if you could go back to yourself before you exchange and tell yourself, hey, I wish I knew this before my exchange, what would that be?
Yeah, well, let me start answering that by saying that one of the unique things about EF tours is that you generally go with a group of students from your school. So it was all people I knew and trusted. And so I really wish that on my trip, I would have gotten more out of my comfort zone and really pushed myself to interact more with the locals, because I think that's one of the most important part of going on an exchange.
I definitely agree with you, and I think to share on my personal experience, when I was hosted in Iowa on the YES program in 2013, 2014, one of the biggest things that I noticed was that exchange students who get hosted in the US always tend to form this clique amongst themselves. So they don't actually engage, but they would rather engage with each other as exchange students. And while that's a good support group, in my regard, I was like, no, let me go out there and just experience. And I think getting involved within the local culture is actually very important to building your cultural awareness and learning more about in that regard. So I'm glad that you shared that one. Is there anyone else that would like to share in terms of something that you wish you knew before you went on exchange?
Something that I wish I knew was that, like, I would try really hard to always be on top of everything. So I should have come up with a lot more, I guess, backup plans to things, because on the way to the actual exchange, like to Ghana to meet up, I actually missed my flight. And so that caused me to
Wow.
like freak out and everything. But I ended up speaking to my advisors and them, and I realized that I can trust those people. And if I ever need a problem, I can go to them for that.
And I think what's vital to note is that sense that many exchange experiences and many organizations have a lot of like good support structures. And I'm glad that it was so easy for you to have that sense of support, that while you're going through that little crisis, you were able to get support quick in that regard. What about the sense of, I think, let me first turn to Van. Van, do we have any responses for our first question in terms of what does it mean to be a global citizen from our audience members?
We will get back to you once we have the question in the chat.
Okay, no problem about that. Let us continue. One of the biggest things that I realize when it comes to our experiences as student ambassadors, as youth ambassadors, as well as former exchange students, is that sense that identity plays a huge role as being both a global citizen as well as just living life. And fundamentally, the question that I often ask is, how does our identity get influenced when we are while we are abroad? And I just want to ask that question to our panelists. Let me start with Faith. Faith, while you were abroad as an American person or as an American citizen, was there any part of your culture as an American that changed, or did you find yourself being more patriotic?
So I did find myself being a lot more patriotic, in the sense that I felt more grateful for being in a place like America where I have so many opportunities and little things like that. For example, when I was out in Ghana, it's not as common to have hot water in every single building like you would in America. So that made me realize and sort of reflect on how much privilege and how much things I have that maybe people from other countries don't end up having, which made me a lot more patriotic.
Oh, that's very touching in that regard. Is there anyone else that felt as though being American changed, or was there a few stereotypes that might have been thrown out at you being an American?
So I would like to say that my experience was actually the opposite of Faith's. So when I went into Panama, I wanted to fully immerse myself like into their culture and community. And so I kind of just cut off my entire patriotic side. Like I didn't mention anything about the United States. If they asked, then obviously I told them. But other than that, I was strictly just in it for the experience. And so my host family constantly called me like a local or a Panameño. And so I think that was because I was so adapted to like my environment that they just felt comfortable with calling me that.
Did you feel as though that sense of being called a local and being so immersed in society, did it help you with the process of exchange, or did you feel more part of a community?
Yeah, I definitely did feel more part of the community, and being one with the community, it made time pass by faster because I felt such a connection with the people around me. And once that connection was created, it was like days became like more fun and I was learning more, and it was just an awesome experience.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I think one of the biggest things is the sense that when you go on exchange, I often tell people, it's very difficult for you to sum up your entire exchange in one sentence or in one word or in one discussion. So fundamentally, you have your whole entire life. There's going to be parts where you're going to look back on your exchange and be like, I'm glad that this happened this way. Or sometimes you're like, I'm glad that this didn't happen this way. So that you're able to just learn more about yourself and get out of your comfort zone. Do we have any updates in terms of the responses from audience?
Yes, we actually have a lot. So one from Ebony Gill, who says, to be a global citizen, it means to take risk and learn from others and teach others and experience all kinds of cultures. Forrest, do you have any?
Yes, we do have another from Marina Hernandez saying that being a global citizen is being culturally aware of all cultures around the world and supporting issues not just in your home country, but other countries around the world.
Gasper Sanchez says, I believe being a global citizen means being able to be one with your community and being able to expand to other communities. The thought is to be able to understand other cultures, just the overall aspect of understanding. Back to you, Nathan.
Thank you very much. I definitely agree with the audience in that sense of that you need to just understand different cultures. And fundamentally, I believe that when it comes to the practice of tolerance and having tolerance for different communities and different cultures, it goes beyond just tolerating a different culture, but fundamentally going beyond and wanting to understand, wanting to learn, wanting to experience another culture is very important in that regard. Would some of the panelists agree with some of the statements that were said by the audience?
Yes, I actually went with Ebony Gill to Pune, India in 2018, I believe. And oh my gosh, I had such a wonderful experience with her. She is so right. We even roomed together. She's so, like, everything she said was really on point as far as to be a global citizen means to take risks and learn from others, teach others, and experience culture exchange with an open mind. It is so important to take risks, especially in like third world countries, because there's so many things that are different, but also there's so many things that are very similar. So it's really just about stepping out of your comfort zone and taking in the cultural exchange.
I definitely agree with that. I think much of the time we are very fearful of change. And if we don't put ourselves out there, we never know what we are able to do and what we are able to achieve. Sometimes they speak when it comes to exchange, we often say that exchange is not a year in your life, but it is a lifetime in a year, yes. And if you think about it in that particular regard, you can literally go on this experience. You can literally change who you are. Look at parts that you struggle and you fear with, and you fundamentally change your whole entire view of the world. Mia, that being said, how has your experience shaped the way you view the world, and where do you see your place in the world now?
I definitely view the world a lot differently. I definitely see myself more grateful for the education that I have. Education has been implemented in me my whole life as education is important. You have to go to college, you have to do good in school, you have to maintain a good GPA, you have to do this, and you have to do that. So I really see myself as, and also encouraging others to do the same thing, because education is important. It's so important, especially for being a woman. Whenever I went to India, I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's already hard enough to get an education there, and it's like 3 times, maybe even 100 times harder for a little girl to get education there. So whenever I came back, I was just so thankful for the opportunities I have at HISD. I go to an early college school, so I really see myself just encouraging others to pursue the same thing. Whenever I came to school, I was always telling people were like, oh, I'm lazy, I don't feel like doing, this project. I'm like, no, do it like now. Like, I'll help you if you need to, do it now. And I really just want to keep on encouraging other people to do good in school.
And I definitely agree with you. That actually speaks to 2 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 4 and goal number 5. Goal number 4 that speaks to ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote long life learning opportunities for all. And goal number 5 that says that to achieve global equality and empower all women and girls. And I firmly believe, and I want to encourage you, that as you now in your own community, while you still appreciate that sense of education, you still encourage other women to also appreciate that sense of education. Is there anyone else that would like to add in terms of how your experience has shaped the way you view the world?
Well,
Vincent, perhaps?
I would like to say that I really relate to what Mia had to say about education because I found that on return from my trip, I became more interested in a different aspect of education. I became more interested in languages and cultures, even though I never really found it interesting before, just because I found myself as part of a larger community around the world, and I saw the ability that these topics have to connect me to those people.
Yeah, cool. Let's just take 2 minutes also just take a few questions from our audience as well. Van, do we have any questions from our audience?
Yes, Nathan, you also appear to have some fans. There was one question asking if everyone in South Africa has an accent as cute as yours, and do you speak any other languages?
I am totally flattered. I speak English and Afrikaans. Those are the two languages that I speak in South Africa. South Africa actually has 14 official languages. But I don't think that Afrikaans is a really cute language. It sounds like German, and I don't think that's cute at all. But yes.
Could you give us a sample?
Goeienaand, my naam is Nathan Swartz en ek praat nou Afrikaans. That is, good evening, my name is Nathan Swartz and I'm speaking Afrikaans.
For all the ladies out there, there you go. There was one question about owning your own culture and truth, and like how does that translate when you study abroad?
Would some of the panelists like to add on to that one? How do you own your own culture while studying abroad? I think this also speaks to that sense of being American abroad as well.
So with that idea, I would say when you own your own culture, I say you can educate people on how you live life, or just let people know how like it is where you come from, because learning something new is always great. So if they teach you things about their culture, you can teach them things about your culture.
Yeah, and fundamentally, I think that sense of being an ambassador is important, that you need to know that while you're in another place, you're representing your own hometown, your own community, your family, and everyone. And if you always remember who you are, you also have that sense of owning who you are, and you're actually proud of who you are while you're abroad. Do you have anyone else that would like to add on to that?
Well, I also found that it was all about a balance because you don't want to push your culture in your face in the face of other people, but also for many people you are the only American they may ever meet. So, you want to give a good impression and just respect their traditions, but not give up your own.
Funny story, I think one of the biggest things, I can remember I gave a presentation while I was in the US, and I was asked if I ride an elephant to school. And for some weird reason, I just was like, yeah, we definitely ride elephants to school. And I always had fun, but at the same time, there was that sense of I loved educating people about my community and about Africa as a whole. Fun fact, South Africa is a country. And because South Africa is a country, you often get this feeling of, okay, if you stay in Africa and you stay in South Africa, where in South Africa do you stay? And that viewpoint of that Africa is not a country, but Africa is a continent in actual fact, is one of the biggest things that I think one of the challenges that I faced while I was abroad in that case. Let's turn to, I just want to turn to the fact that being a global citizen also means that we need to welcome difference. And Faith touched upon that sense of when she was in Ghana, you couldn't really use your left hand because your left hand was seen as like a wrong hand in that regard. Was there anyone else that might have had like something that seemed like so out of the norm for you in your host culture that was like a real challenge for you to understand?
So for me, going to Panama, I did have set expectations, not anything like out of the norm, but I had expectations of what I was going to be put into, and I thought that that everything would be quote unquote normal, or I guess similar to what I'm used to in the United States. But on the first day, I will never forget this. On the first day that I was there, at night after meeting my host family and getting to know them a little bit, we were having dinner, and then all of a sudden somebody just walks through the front door, and I'm like, "Yeah, who is this?" And they told me that was their neighbor, and I figured out that everyone in the community leaves their doors open, or their front doors open, so that they can walk in and out of each other's homes, and just maybe sit down, have a conversation, share a meal, share an experience. And I feel like that's very important to be a global citizen, because it shows unity in society.
Cool. And I think we're just going to have time for just one more question for all of the panelists. And I want to take this on in the current moment in time. In the light of this COVID-19 pandemic, I believe that our global culture has changed a lot. In your opinions as the panelists, what would you say, how has our global culture changed? And likewise, if you're thinking about the future of cultural exchanges, what innovative ideas would you give post-COVID-19? Yeah.
I would say the post-COVID-19, post-COVID-19 would bring light to more unifying things, such as social media, getting together on social media, doing more digital challenges, or even having more digital experiences abroad. And I feel like that would bring people together more, and it would cause people to be able to participate more abroad, not less of going abroad, but they can still have that experience, but just from their computers in their homes.
Yeah, fundamentally, we are all currently now on an exchange experience, because I'm from South Africa, you guys are from the US, and we are ultimately sharing our culture in this way as well. Do you have anyone else that would like to add on to that?
I would like to add on to, yes, not being able to physically travel to the study abroad locations has altered the ability to see cultures and, beautiful countries firsthand. And everyone in general, I believe, has had a rough time being on pause, and it's been a difficult time to figure out exactly what is the next move. And even though we've lost the physical ability to travel, again, just like they said, we can still engage with online programs that teach cultures. And I feel, for me as well as so many other students, that we could share their study abroad experience with others as a way of teaching others what we have learned on our global experience.